Hello and welcome to Kate's Paper Creations. Today I am sharing a paper pumpkin July 2020 alternative. And this is the card that I came up with. I'm hopefully going to be making some more, but this is the first one I made. And I am loving it, and I hope you will too. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator as well, and if there are any extras that don't come in the kit, I sell those products and hope that you will visit my blog at www.katespapercreations.org, where you can shop with me online and have your orders shipped directly to your door. No having to go to town for any reason. Okay, let me show you how I made this card. First of all, in the kit are these cute little bags. And they're just adorable, but I really don't have much use for luminary bags. Parties are kind of out of the question right now, and so I'm not real sure what I would do with that, except maybe save it for a future date. But what I did do is I took my paper trimmer, and I just cut a very thin, very like 1/8 of an inch off of the two sides and the bottom. And when you do that, you end up with this piece like this, which can then be used on the front of a card or however you want to use it. But you can also use it as a stencil. Now what I do is I have a Silhouette Cameo electronic cutter. And what I did is I put a piece of black behind this and scanned it, took it into my Cameo and cut out that shape so that I could have a more sturdy stencil to use. And so this is just out of Whisper White cardstock, which makes it kind of sturdier than the other. This card is a note card. Stampin' Up! Sells these note card sized cards and envelopes. And so it is 3.5 wide, this way, by 5 this way. If you were cutting them yourself out of Whisper White thick or whatever, it would be 7 by 5, and then you would score it 3.5 to make a note card size. But I have the note cards that Stampin' Up! Sells. So you start with that. I'm going to just fold it and find my bone folder and burnish that edge and make sure I've got the front of the card. And I'm going to start by embossing with silver embossing powder. And I just, to make sure I had it as high as I could on the thing, I just, how you can see the edge of the card, so I just pulled it down a bit, and then I pushed it over and pulled it back until I was just real close to that top corner as I thought I could get. Then I have the Versamark ink pad, and I used a sponge dauber, and it's going to bounce around here because I can't get it to sit still. And I just sponge daubed. You got to press kind of hard because you want it to get down past the cardstock and get down into those spots where the paper is cut away, cardstock or paper, however you want to put it. And you got to kind of hold it in place. You could tape this down with some removable adhesive so that it wouldn't move, and that might be a little bit easier than trying to hold it in place. I think some of my ink may be getting off on there a little bit, but it's going to be okay. Actually, that's kind of cool because you can see where the Versamark is on there. Then I'm going to bring in my silver embossing powder, and this is a tray that Stampin' Up! Used to sell. It's no longer available, and these little scoops, they're from when I was a teacher and doing science experiments with kids, and it's just, they're available in groups of 10, like on Amazon or whatever. And I just keep them because they work so good for using my, and I'm going to turn on, it's going to get noisy because I'm going to turn on my heat tool and let it kind of preheat a little bit. If I let the heat tool preheat a little bit, it melts faster than when I start to work with the card. And I should have embossing buddied this card, and I didn't, so I am going back and just knocking off these extra little pieces as much as I can with a brush. Once you get them loose, you can tap and they will fall off. It's going to be okay. I just being a little bit picky, I think. So there's that. So now we're going to melt that. And that's been preheating for a little while. So don't mind the noise. Here we go. Now you could do this in a layer, a separate layer, because it will kind of try to warp your card, but if you move around and not stay in one place too long, it will be okay. You can see it's starting to melt the embossing powder. There we go. Oh, I can see some that needs to be touched up yet. And there's a couple more tips there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, done with that noise. Oh. And so there's the silver embossing powder piece. Then I put this back on, and I offset it so it was like this to start with. And I just turned it a slight little bit until the silver didn't show. And then I took my Blackberry Bliss, and let's make sure I've got it laying flat. And I used a brush, one of these brushes that I have, and I just started and you can make this as dark or as light as you want. And I've just started coloring in. And again, you got to hold it pretty steady. You don't want it to move around or that'll ruin the look. Okay, I think that's good enough. And get ready for this. It's going to be beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that just awesome? I love it. Then I decided that because the silver was sparkly, you could leave this muted, but I decided it needed some Wink of Stella. So I'm going to, this is a brand new one, make sure I got some coming down. And I didn't try to get to the very tips, but I started at the thick, it's a little too much on there, on the thick end, and then just drew it back to the thin end. And if you give a really light touch, it'll work. And you can add just a touch of sparkle to each of those Blackberry Bliss sparkles that are on there. Got a little piece of hair on there. I think my cat visits my stamping table when I'm not looking, and every once in a while he leaves a few little hairs behind that I find getting into my ink pads or something like that. That's always fun to try and get out of the mess, but I love my kitty, so I put up with it. And here we go. And just like this, I'll keep going around till they all get a touch of the Wink. And it gets pretty quiet. I think I'm sitting here with my tongue sticking out trying to make sure I do it just right. Today's a beautiful sunny day. It's like 80 degrees outside. I should be outside hanging in my hammock, but I realized I had not done any of my paper pumpkin alternatives, and July is over tomorrow. So there's that. Then I took the stem piece, this that was in the kit, and I probably should have shown you that picture. Let me get that out. This is the kit, and this is this piece here, and I'm not sure what it was for, but for me it looks like a stem, so that's what I'm going to use it for. And I am going to use Old Olive with this, and I placed it on here in a curve on purpose, and I just picked a spot that I thought looked good for it to come out from, and that looks good right there, and pressed it down. And so there's the stem. Then there's this little piece, which kind of looks like a fireworks going off in the sky, but I'm going to use it with Old Olive, and I'm going to stamp it on here and make leaves out of it. Oh, there's a little bit too much there. I'll be careful. Like that. Isn't that cute? Oh, I love it. Okay, then I stamped a couple of the little fireflies. I had to think about what it was called. Firefly. And I just stamped a couple of those on here. And then I wanted those fireflies to have little yellow lights on their tails. So I colored those in with the Daffodil Delight marker. Like that. And I added a touch of Wink to that as well. So they sparkle. And then I used a sentiment from a different stamp set. I wasn't really into inviting people to a party. And so I used Butterfly Gala, and it has a sentiment that says a little note. And I thought, oh, that just goes perfect with the front of this card. And I am going to put that right down here. And there's that. Now on the inside, I don't want to open that up too far because it's not totally dry. That Wink of Stella takes just a little bit to dry. But on the inside, I took that little firefly and I put him up here in the corner. And then I took my Blackberry Bliss marker and I used the pen end and I created a flutter as he goes up and down the side of the card. Just like that. Oopsie. And I also colored this little guy's tail yellow. And I will add a little touch of Wink of Stella to that. So he will sparkle inside the card. And while that's drying, these are in the kit, these cute little stars. And I'm going to put one right in the middle of my flower like that. And there is my first paper pumpkin alternative for July 2020. I hope you enjoyed stopping by. Let's hope it worked. Hope it worked.